Good morning, everybody. It is Robbie from Southern California. See my coffee? I am having coffee this morning before the sun gets into my chair garden. And I did a little bit, I'm just doing a little bit out here every day because I'm running around doing all kinds of stuff. Don't look, I'm changing the back wall. No, I am doing a little bit here and there. I've got something I'm going to do over at the fountains, but today, or I should say the ponds, just want to come in here and kind of still analyze what I'm doing. Love the flower pots that are on the bottom here, catching the water and feeding the little stuff I put in there. Celery, lettuce, walking onions. Even my oregano is looking good. No basket on that one. That one's got a basket. Probably don't need a basket. This is working out really good. So now it's a matter of, well, we've been in a heat wave. We have been in the 90s. But the thing is, it's going to change next week. They say and go back into the 60s during the day. No, Kitty's not hiding, is it?
That's an inch of rain.
We got an inch of rain. There's Kitty.
Rain and
Kitty, what are you doing out in the hail, Kitty? You know what? It's not rain. She hates the rain, but this isn't rain. So I don't want to jump the gun, get a bunch of stuff planted, and then end up, you know, making free soil. Well, it won't be free soil, but it'll be my soil, you know, my plants that I put in here. So I'm pacing myself right now. So all in all, this is prepped and ready to go. Had a tomato seedling that was growing in here, and I moved it there, and we'll see what happens with that. And the walking onions, there's nothing in here yet, but this is all done. So that I did in the same fashion I did that tote. And now I'll be composting in place as I'm growing in there, which is doing really good. And in those two pots there are leftover soil that I took out of here, because you know how I do it. I took out everything from the front so it will continue to drain really good. I loaded it up like I always do with branches and leaves and all that stuff. And then I put it back on the top after all that good matter's in there for the earthworms to start to feed on it again. There weren't even that many earthworms in this one because everything had broke down so much that they probably left. But the point is, I didn't have to put it all back. So I've got some left over in these pots. And you have to make sure, once you move it, that you're going to keep this damp. See how it's damp? Because there's earthworms in there still. And there's still microbes and everything in there. So I'm going to figure out which tote I'm going to do next and then get that put into a new home is what it is. Kind of like baking sourdough bread. Or some people say, oh, our yeast that we use is 100 years old because they keep it all the time and move it around. Well, it's kind of like that. You've got your microbes in there and now they're in there. So I'm going to use it somewhere else. Just not sure which tote I'm going to tear apart first. Got to get rid of this one because this one's got that styrofoam I did for fun. That's all the way to the bottom. I can't just pull it. So I'm going to have to pull out all the celery and everything. So when I get to that, I'll probably put something else in there. But look, I made my own soil. Rich black soil. It's beautiful. So a lot of you have asked me about plant food. What kind of plant food do I use? Do I use fish emulsion? Do I use this? Let me tell you right now, I use zero plant food, but that is not saying you should not use plant food. Oh, let me correct that. It's not that I use zero plant food. I do use plant food. I don't buy plant food. Not going to start with all these fancy plant foods and different concoctions that you put your air bubbler in there and you have to make sure it doesn't go anaerobic and all that. No. Don't do any of that. I have bought plant food. We bought some plant food at some plant supply company we went to once. They had them on sale for $2 a bag. And this must have been when we first started. I think when I first started my garden. So they were like $2 a bag. And I think I used one bag and I still have it. I should just dump it somewhere and use it. We stopped using it. I make my own plant food. I'll take a bucket. I've got the videos up on it, so I'll just touch on that real quick. I go around collecting collard leaves, kale leaves like that, the plant food matter, and I just put it in a bucket, fill it up with water, and let it rot. In a few days, it starts to smell, and then I go through with a dipper and feed the plants. I don't spray it on the plants. I know a lot of people spray their plants. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't spray it on the plants. I just water the plants, and they just burst into life. They get so much green to them, and they grow fantastic. So I make my own plant food. I don't generally start it right in the beginning. You can. But when the plants are small, I don't worry about it too much. They're just starting out. But as soon as they start to throw tomatoes and squash and all that, I try to remember. See, there's a bucket back there. So that's my plant food. And I think I've got another bucket way down there. And so I can have it ready. And it doesn't matter, I keep a lid on it so there's no mosquitoes. It does, and you don't have to keep a lid on it. If you don't have mosquitoes, don't worry about it. And if you have mosquito larvae in there, it's part of your plant food, so you can just feed it. But I keep it around so I have it ready, and then I can just feed some of the plants. And how often do I feed them? When I remember. I don't do it every day, though you probably could because it's Mother Nature's plant food. Look at the hummingbird coming here. So it wouldn't matter. You can feed them as often as you want. I usually generally dip into it once they start taking off once or twice a week. Just dip into some of the plant food and then water the plants. Again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying plant food. You can buy plant food and it would be fine, but I'm cheap and I'm going to do it more like Mother Nature. Mother Nature isn't buying plant food. She's not spraying her plants. Maybe in certain areas next to the ocean, they get to see spray from them, but they're not doing anything like that. Everything is drop, rot, and grow, and it's all happening all at the same time. Does Mother Nature turn? If it gets really windy. Does she really turn it up? Only if a tsunami comes through. No, really, maybe a landslide, a hillside falls and things turn, but generally, nothing's turning here. Nothing's doing anything here. It's just growing, and it's all the leaf matter falls, covers the base, it rains, it rots, it feeds the plants. That's basically what I do in my garden. It works, it's cheap. If I planted something and wanted to use plant food, yeah, a lot of times you can get these big growths because you're putting synthetic plant food in, and just watch what you're putting in there because sometimes they're not maybe something you want. So that's it on plant food. Epsom salt. Oh my gosh, I've seen people say, throw Epsom salt all over. I tried that once and I killed a lot. We have clay soil. And I think I showed you before, I know I showed you before, that when you dig here, we have actually found shells, like underground fossil shells. We have enough salt here. You throw Epsom salt around here and you will fry the plants. They will literally die. I did it once, used less than required, and I lost so many plants. So I do not add Epsom salt. I don't know. Mother Nature adds it through the trees, so it's whatever's coming from the trees. I don't need to add Epsom salt. If it works for you, go for it. It does not work for me. So that's basically on plant food. I'm a compost in place person. I am a no-till person. I fill up my containers, whether it's a tote, a bucket, flower pot, even in the ground. You can, where you're going to plant, you can dig a hole, load in your leaves, your branches and everything, cover it up and plant. This is the way I do it. Okay, Mother Nature isn't digging holes and putting matter in the ground and covering it up. You know what? She is. She's dropping it. I'm speeding it up. Because remember, what's going to break down is only the stuff that's underneath the top layer. And the top layer could be just that much. Once it's underneath, because the microbes and the earthworms don't want to come, they're going to dry out. They can't come to the top. Now, what will eat the top is other roly-polies and other insects. But the thing is, what's really feeding your soil is what's right underneath that. And that's what I do. I just love doing it. And the other thing I can do, I'll show you here, is like, okay, I'm not planting in this yet, but it's all set up, ready to go. All right, let's have the tomato plants there. Look at this. Put a flower pot. You know how I talk about layering? There's so many ways. I've got dozens of ways of layering, but look at this. Just a flower pot with some walking onions I stuck in there. I took some leaves off this broccoli plant, stuck it in there, and there are, I know there's earthworms. I saw them this morning. There's even an old tomato there. It's just sitting in there. You can feed your plants that way too. That's another way of feeding your plants. If you don't want to rot any water, you could do it all. The more you do, the better it is. But you could just have a flower pot, push it in, and you don't have to have, I have a two system. Go back and check that video out. I have a fantastic video on a two system. I will put the link to that video. I did it over on the wall, and let me tell you, the zucchini I grew with that two system were like I know you're supposed to pick them small, but they were growing like almost overnight, so big. And the reason I like the two system, it's done with, I did that one with containers and I do it with buckets. Nothing can get into it. You have a dog, they can't get into it. You have rats, mice, raccoons. I don't know about raccoons, but they can't get into it. They can't get to it because you're putting it in the two systems. So check that video out. It is the easiest thing to do. It's free and you have constant plant soil. You won't have to worry about anything but just watering the bucket. Check that one out. So that's it for this morning. I just wanted to come out here and I'm going to try to do every morning when I have coffee, a little bit in here until I am ready to go. And I'm still kind of deciding what gets the most sun because I want to figure out where I'm going to put the watermelon. I want to get watermelon in here and I definitely want to get zucchini in here. And I don't want to overdo on tomatoes because I have tomatoes growing everywhere. So I figured, okay, so I had some seedlings off my kitchen window. That's where these came from. I think that one got moved from one of these other totes that came up. So while I was working, I thought, all right, I'll move that over. This I just cleaned up. I haven't done anything to this tote. So I haven't taken anything out. Look at the tomatoes coming back. What I did was last year I had like a dozen tomato plants. So I trimmed them all out. And this is going to go into a tote. I just trimmed them all out and I left 2. Now, I don't know if I'm going to leave this permanently or not because when I really get into this, I'll see what I'm going to do. But I left 2 for now because I'm not doing anything with it. Been picking broccoli off that poor little broccoli. It's been doing really well. And then if it really bursts into growth and starts taking off, I might leave these 2. What I'll do is I'll dig a hole, drop a bunch of food matter, and drop a flower pot with something else growing. Maybe I'll put some parsley in a flower pot. That might work too. And I may not have to touch that one. And then I still want to get to the rest of them. I am definitely going to get to the rest. And then I was starting to take this apart. And I know it's dark. It's very hard for you to see. I made this 2 years ago now. It's going to go on to almost 2 years. And I have a method of how I make these bends. So you can get the plain old tomato sticks. And if you've got a dollar store, sometimes they get these. Let me see if I can get more for you on the other side. You get them 2 for $1 in a package. And when you go to the hardware stores or nurseries, they sell the stakes for like $3 and $4. So you can get them for 50 cents sometimes, but even $1's worth it because they last forever. See, I'll have to show you how I did this, but this is 2 years old and I was getting ready to take it out and it's doing so well. It's a frame between these 2. So I'm thinking of leaving it for right now and deciding what I want to do. And I can pull it out whenever I want. So I'm going to leave that because the framework's done. There's no work for me and the tomatoes can grow through that. And then I take sticks. I've talked about this. Stick the sticks around there so the birds can come in, which they did this morning. And they were actually eating my lettuce seed. And there's sow thistle here. So they were going for the sow thistle. I had a songbird in there as well as some goldfinches feeding on that. So that's that. So that's an update on the chair garden. This is a very simple garden. This is chairs that people threw away, that people gave to me. They were painted with that tester paint, 50-cent paint. Those old containers you can get at Home Depot. Do you know they'll paint 3 chairs easy? So for 50 cents, you can paint 3 chairs. They were painted years and years ago, a lot of these chairs. And then the totes were $5. I did see that Lowe's has some totes now for $5, so check that out. And this is on the cheap. So this particular garden, this whole thing here is, hummingbird keeps coming, is really cheap to make. Free chairs that were thrown away, floral pots I got from the florist, and it made holes in it, and that's what I'm using around there to catch the water. That's it. So what it cost me, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, $55. It's been going now 2 years. It's doing fantastic. Nothing is cracked. Nothing is chipped on the totes. I can go 1 container at a time. Can't beat that. If this was a raised bed and it was all one, you have to do the whole thing because the water is running through. It would be running. But you have all this at your own pace. And that's why I'm so crazy about this. But this one's on the cheap. So this whole unit here was like I said, $55. If you go to a thrift store, you can get these containers for $2 a lot of times because so many people donate clothes and stuff in them and then they just want to blow them out. You can go to Walmart, I heard, in different stores, and if they've got them stacked there and they don't have the lids, they'll give them to you for half price. This is on the cheap. The stakes, I get them at the 99-cent store if you need them. You can use sticks that, from around the yard if you want and to hold your plants up. The birds appreciate branches over climbing through the tomatoes because they can land on that. And that's it. So this has been fantastic. This is a cheap garden. Very simple. Now you can get fancier totes, colored totes. I actually just bought some. And that's different. You can spend the amount of money that you want. That's why this is, look at this. Let me step back. This is a big garden. It's like having a party. You can sit in there. You can stand. There's no bending. I absolutely love this. No bending. I'm going to get double duty. This time I'm not catching water. I'm actually feeding plants on the bottom. This is like fantastic. I love this. So that's it for today. I just wanted to tell you, no, I do not buy any plant food. I haven't bought plant food in years. I don't have a reason to, but there's nothing wrong with buying plant food if you want. So that's it for now. I'm going to go get some other stuff done because I am slowly working on all my gardens. And yes, I'm not going to talk about it yet, but I've got a new project and we will talk about that another time. But again, a garden on the cheap, whole thing, $55, free chairs. And look in your papers, look around trash day. People throw them away because the paint is rubbing off on your finger and they don't know that if you paint it, it'll go another 10 years, the chairs. It's just the plastic on the surface starts to break down and then it gets like a dusty white. Nobody wants to sit in there because you sit down with your nice jeans, you're going to get white all over you. But once you paint it, you saw me paint that one a couple years ago. Once you paint it, you have nothing coming off. Nothing. Look at that. Nothing. It's beautiful. And it's just that cheap paint. Now, if you wanted to get a certain color for your yard, a certain design, then absolutely go into Home Depot or Lowe's and they can sell you the tester paints. They're like $4 or $5 and you can choose the color. And remember, you can get a good 3 chairs out of one little tiny can of tester paint. Okay, so I do not use Epson salt. I can't. I will kill my plants here. They don't want it. I don't want it. No Epsom salt. I do not use plant food because I make my own when I'm ready. And I also compost in place and I do the 2 system. So all that is done that way and it's all on the cheap. And I'm telling you, we get plenty of food. I don't need to spend a lot of money. With that, have a wonderful, wonderful day. And don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye, everybody.